Welcome back, drawing buddies. Today we are going to talk about and draw Deadpool. We're going to go from pencils to inks to colors, and we'll also talk about Deadpool and a bunch of other nonsense. So if that sounds like a good time, let's draw. Of course, we're going to start out penciling Deadpool, but I must say I forgot to record the initial sketch of the character, which is fine because I changed almost everything except for the one of the legs and that hand. The head moves, the arm moves, the whole leg gets redrawn on the right or left, I don't know. Depends which way you're facing. And I even changed his actual body because I decided to go for more like the picture up in the corner than what you're looking at. So I apologize for that confusion. And, well, let's get to it. So, Deadpool's first appearance was in New Mutants number 98. I believe that was in 1991. It was by Rob Liefeld and Fabian Niciez that introduced us to the Mark with a Mouth, but he wasn't really the Mark with a Mouth. He was just your standard assassin character who threw out a quippy quote every now and then, and there really wasn't anything special about him except for the cool-looking suit he had. Then, I believe he was on a trading card in the back of X-Force number 1 when that debuted, and that's considered his rookie card, and the PSA 10's worth a few $100, I think, maybe $1,000. At one point, he was going for like 10 grand during the end of the world there, and speculation was going crazy, and people were bored sitting on their couches. And then his actual second appearance was in X-Force number 2. He's actually on the cover again, fighting, I forgot the dude's name, so we want to talk about him. And then he made a few more appearances in X-Force. Then he was given a limited series in, I want to say, the mid-90s, early 90s. And it was more of the same, just an assassin dude doing his thing. And then he got his first ongoing series, and that was by writer Joe Kelly and artist Ed McGuinness. And Joe Kelly is the one who brought the real humor, the absurdity to Deadpool, the breaking the fourth wall, bringing his healing factor to a ridiculous level. And Joe Kelly and Ed McGuinness created the Deadpool we all know and love. I actually talked to Joe Kelly a few weeks ago, or a month ago now, when I went to Terrificon. I had a booth there selling some prints. And I asked him about a few things, because me and a friend of mine were talking about Deadpool and his origins and stuff like that. And the fourth wall thing wasn't Deadpool. Deadpool wasn't the first one to do that. It was She-Hulk and John Byrne's run. And that run was extremely popular. And it made a woman character extremely popular, which was not a thing back in the late 80s, mid 80s. And John Byrne was able to, make her that popular by making her absurd and having her break the fourth wall and having her fight characters like Death's Head and whatnot. So I asked Joe Kelly if that was any influence on him, and he said nope, he didn't find out about that till later. So whether we believe him or not, I don't know, because that series was extremely popular. But, he's a nice guy. I've met him many times at many cons, so I have no reason not to believe him. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I also asked him if characters like Death's Head had any influence on him, because Death's Head was sort of like a proto Deadpool from Marvel UK in the 80s. He first appeared in a Transformers book, and then he moved on to Doctor Who, and then the Doctor shrunk him and sent him to our regular universe and made him normal size, not Transformer size. It's a big, long, convoluted thing, but he was mercenary too. Although he didn't like being called a bounty hunter, he wanted to be called a freelance peacekeeping agent, yes. And he's a really cool character. If you want to read something off the beaten path, look for the Death's Head graphic novel or the single issues from the late 80s or mid 80s from Marvel UK, because Death's Head 2 is terrible, don't read that. And then he just had a limited series a few years ago. I guess they got to do that every once in a while to keep copyrights and stuff like that, trademarks. And I read it, and it was a mess, but it was written by his original UK writers and stuff, and it wasn't great, but it's more Death's Head, so it was fun. And no need to keep talking about Death's Head, but he said he wasn't an influence either. He never heard of him. And that one I believe, because Death's Head was really obscure until Death's Head 2, and even then it wasn't really about Death's Head. It was about his replacement, who was really edgy in the 90s and terrible. So, yeah. So Joe Kelly and Ed McGuinness created the Deadpool we all know and love. Not Rob Liefeld and Fabian Niciez, no matter how much credit Rob Liefeld likes to take at conventions and, you know, when anybody asks him. But he did come out with the initial idea and the name, so, you know, you got to give him credit for that. And as you can see right here, I'm totally not happy with the body, and I'm not happy with the head, so I redraw the body to give it more of an extreme angle. And then I said, hey, you know what? We're going to redraw the head too. So I give him that more upturned looking etched kind of head, more wise ass, more Deadpool. I didn't give him any guns or anything because I was under the impression that that was bad to do on YouTube. But apparently YouTube distinguishes between, you know, comics and drawings and artificial things and real guns. If they're real guns, I guess it's no bueno. But, you know, fake guns and characters like Deadpool, I guess it's okay. So next time I draw a character who might have a gun, I'm going to draw it in and see what happens. And if it goes horrible, then I won't do it again. But, you know, it doesn't hurt to test the limits of what you get away with every now and then. So I'll do that. So here I'm redrawing the head to give it more of the look it has now. But it takes a little while, and I have to move a bunch of things around to get it to where I like it. So, of course, the pencils took longer than I wanted them to. Also on this one, if you look at the thumbnail I threw up on the corner there, it also, I'm working on taking my coloring to different levels, I guess you'd call it. You know, I'm adding more of a gradient to the solid colors, even though it's subtle. But, you know, even though you barely see it, it still makes a difference. I'm also, you know, throwing some dots on things and adding some highlights because I learned a few things about layers in Clip Studio that make this a heck of a lot easier that I didn't know about before. And I found these photo filters that I love. You throw them on a drawing and it kind of mushes it all together, and I like what it does. One of them's some kind of chromatic filter where it kind of breaks it into the RGB a little bit and makes it a little rough around the edges and out of focus, but with the colors, you know, the cyan and the magenta and the blue, and you can see it around the eyes mostly. So you throw that on there, and then you throw on a chromatic aberration filter photo. No, that's what we just used. You throw on a vintage photo filter, and it kind of gives it like a yellow faded light, like a lot of old photos had from flashes or poor sunlight or exposure, you know, little instant handheld cameras from the 80s. And I love what that does to it too. It's sort of another blend to bring it all together. But you drop the opacity on these filters. You don't leave them at 100%. You bring them down to like 20, 30%, 18%, depending on the picture. So it's just a subtle thing. And you leave an untouched base layer. And you also, I saw this on a coloring tutorial because, you know, you're always learning, my friends. And what they do is they take a version of it and they blur it. They use the Gaussian blur and they blur it. And then you bring that down. So there's just a really slight focus shift on the drawing. And, you know, it really only takes about 10 minutes to do these things, not even. And once you're done, it really adds a lot of depth and dimension to the drawing. So maybe you'll see that at the end, but it goes by pretty quick because, you know, you're just throwing on filters. So another thing, I gotta put a list of tutorials together. We gotta do one about perspective and drawing the buildings like we did on Donatello, because I actually did get requests for that in the shorts. So, you know, you got to give the people what they want, and part of this is showing them things that they might not necessarily know. So people might not necessarily know because, you know, while I might not be the best artist out there, you know, I do have an idea what I'm doing on some things. So if I could help you with anything you want to see, I will do it. And I'm going to put together a little tutorial on throwing those filters on a drawing too. I went back and tried to put it on some of the older drawings, and on some it works and some it doesn't. So it's not something you could use all the time. Yep, it's not a one-fits-all fix, but on the newer drawings and the way that I colored things, it seems to have worked out really nicely, because next month is going to be horror month. So next week, we're finally going to put up that Supergirl I've been talking about for 3 weeks, because if I don't, I'm going to have to push it to another month, because October is going to be horror month. So we're going to do Jason Voorhees. We're going to do Leatherface. We're going to do the vampire I drew a month ago, because I decided to hold him off till horror month. And then, since I'm going to see the Chainsaw movie with a friend of mine, I think that comes out October 10th. I'm going to sneak in Chainsaw Man and maybe Power, one or the other, maybe both. I haven't decided yet because I didn't start sketching that one out yet. But that looks like it'll be a darn fun one, and it'll give me like 2 weeks worth of people with chainsaws in the month of October, which is kind of weird because Leatherface will have his chainsaw. So yeah, October is going to be horror month, and we're going to count Chainsaw Man or Power as horror characters because, yeah, why not? I think they sort of qualify. And yeah, that's going to be fun. So that's why Supergirl has to be next week, because it's the last week of the month before we start on the horror stuff. I also know that I already drew Deadpool technically in the Deadpool Wolverine Chibi video. And that was really fun to draw, and it's really cool, but Deadpool's kind of fun to draw, and he's kind of popular, and I want to do him again, but, you know, regular Deadpool, so that's where this came from. And probably after Horror Month, Wolverine's probably going to be one of the characters I do, and then I might do another character from Demon Slayer, because I got a request for that, and, you know, if I think it'll be fun, and I think people will like it, I'm going to follow through with requests. Another question I have, I don't know, well, I don't get a lot of comments on the main video. It's mostly on the shorts, so people watching the shorts will probably answer because they like to do that, which is awesome. And the question is, do you watch it more for the commentary or for the drawing? I mean, I'm going to keep doing both, and one's not going to go away, obviously, because I enjoy talking about the characters and nonsense, and I also enjoy drawing the characters, and that's the whole point of these videos. So, but I'm just curious what's more popular and what you want talked about. You want more of the history? You want more of the ridiculous childhood stories? Do you want, I don't know, more talk about movies and comics? I don't know. I'm just kind of winging it in all these videos and talking about whatever I want to talk about, which I'll probably still do no matter what your answers are, because, you know, I'm stubborn and I kind of get into a rhythm and I just kind of do my thing. But it's good to know what people actually want, so I could try to grow the channel a little bit more. So yeah, let me know down below, or whenever I make a short of this part of this video, let me know then. I would appreciate it. So I'm not a huge Deadpool fan as far as comics go. You know, it wasn't a trend that I really followed because I read his predecessors. You know, I read the She-Hulk, John Byrne. I read Death's Head. In fact, one of the reasons why I asked Joe Kelly about Death's Head wasn't because I necessarily thought he read Death's Head initially, but Death's Head did make an appearance in the She-Hulk book, and that's one of the few She-Hulk books I actually still have, because, you know, if it has Death's Head in it and I see it and it's affordable, I'm going to buy it. You know, I have the single issues of a series, most of them, maybe all of them. I have to check. I have his first comic appearance, which was in, what's that called? Dragon's Claw. Dragon's Claw number 3, 1, I don't remember, but one of those I have it. And then his real first appearance was in the Transformers UK magazine. And I did get one of those off of eBay, but it's a little rough. But I mean, it's hard to keep a book like that in good condition because the Marvel UK magazines were printed on like super thin newspaper in color. Even the covers, they're really thin. And they were really disposable, so, you know, even finding any of them is kind of like a good luck thing. I found a bunch in a comic shop once. You know, it wasn't the first appearance, but it was some of his other appearances, and the guy had like 5 of them in a bag for like $30, so I had to buy that, because if you read Death's Head and you like funny comics and absurd comics, you'll understand. You can see here that I finalized Deadpool's head and where the hand was going to go and the change in the body. And I think I actually changed the leg as I start inking because, like, you know, I just didn't love it. That's with the change of the body and the change of the head. So I don't feel so bad for forgetting to record the initial sketch of the body because it's where I was going. It's just I made enough changes that it shouldn't be that big of a deal. And if it is, I apologize, and I'm trying not to do that, but sometimes I have to get these drawings done when I'm not alone, so I'll forget to push the little record button because I'm dealing with some little people that I have to pay attention to. Not all the time, because I don't babysit alone, but I do it, so the kid needs my attention more than the drawing in most cases. A good thing, and part of the reason why I started doing this channel in the first place, is I wanted to draw more. So what better excuse to draw more than start a YouTube channel and have to do at least one drawing every week. But I have actually been drawing a lot more than I probably have since the 90s, which is kind of awesome. And I am, if you count Deadpool, I'm 4 videos ahead right now. If you don't, I'm 3, which is cool. And by the end of this week, I will be 4 videos ahead again. Because after Deadpool finished drawings, I have the Supergirl for next week. I have the Jason Voorhees for next week, and I have the Vampire. But hey, we are done with the pencils, and now we're on to the inks. Now, inking Deadpool, like all my other drawings, is the fastest part. I also forgot to do inking the hand, so I just kind of erased it and replayed the erasing backwards for the first part. So again, sorry about that. But you get to see the rest of the inking, so I didn't completely screw everything up. But you can see I still have the old leg, so I actually get all the way done inking him, and then I have to erase the leg, go back to the pencils, redraw the leg, and then save it and get to coloring. So while the inking, like every other drawing, is the fastest part, because, you know, basically just tracing over the mess of pencils that I make, this one had an extra step because I made a change halfway through, which I do sometimes, because you know what? You can't always be happy with everything the first time. Also, I think I figured out a way to add more overlays on the videos. So I'm going to have the color picture, maybe even this video, I don't know, I gotta try it. I'm gonna have the color picture in the corner, I'm gonna have the pencils, I'm gonna have the inks, and I'm gonna have my little logo. And eventually I might have one of those little talking bobblehead things, I guess it's called VTubing, I have no idea. I have no idea what's going on in the world outside of my own little world. I have no idea how other art channels work. I don't know what they draw, which is either a good thing or a bad thing, depending how you look at it, because I don't know what the trends are. I just kind of do what I like to do and hope for the best. In fact, one of the things I might start, well, I'm going to start doing it. I'm going to start drawing characters that aren't, you know, famous, aren't other IPs. I have a group of fairies that I've been drawing. Well, I drew them a bunch of years ago, but I want to start adding more fairies to the canon, and eventually, you know, start a Kickstarter and do a book or something. I'm not going to do a comic on fairies, but almost like a history and a Marvel Who's Who book. You know, like why the fairies are where they are, and you know what their habitat is, and what their motivations are, and then it'll just be pictures of each fairy and a little biography of them. I did 19 of them initially, and I was talking to somebody at a tiny little one-day art show, Comic-Con, I don't know what it was. But it was kind of fun, and somebody asked me to draw them, which is something that's never happened before. So I gave it some thought, and I said that would be a good excuse to start up the fairies again and use this person as reference for at least one of them. So we'll see where that goes, and obviously I'll record the drawings and post the videos, even though I'm not sure how popular that will be. But that'll be in addition to the pop culture videos, not replacing them. So those of you who like me doing the anime characters and the comic characters and the movie characters, that is still going to continue. But I am also going to do the fairies, and I might start drawing an 8-page comic for a character I thought of many years ago. It's very not mainstream, but he's fun to look at. He's called the Bunny. He's sort of based on a friend of mine whose wife asked me to draw him as a comic character when they were getting married. And it's kind of like the monkey paw thing. Be careful what you wish for, and you'll see when I draw it. But he's fun. He's ridiculous, and you'll see why I always say I like things that are fun and ridiculous once you see the bunny. But yeah, those will be in addition to these, not in replacing of them. It'll also give me more content, and plus the bunny one, it'll help me practice drawing comic pages again, because it's only going to be like an 8-page quick thing. One, because I'm an awful writer and I don't really know how to write comics, so it'll be a learning experience for me. But it'll also see if I could still put a comic together and make each panel a drawing worth looking at, because that's kind of a problem, because you know, you could have a really cool splash page or a really cool character jumping off a building, which will probably be on the first page of the bunny thing, but you know, it's the little things that make a good comic page, the interactions between characters and the angles and stuff like that, and the storytelling. You know, that's the most important part. So we'll see if I could pull that off. I'm hoping I still can. And if not, I'll just keep doing it till I can, because that's the whole point of practicing these things. I think a few videos ago I mentioned I watched a Mike Mignola documentary, and it made me want to simplify my drawings a bit. And I'm kind of doing the exact opposite of that. I'm still adding in these little extra lines and zigzags and things like that instead of removing them and simplifying the form. But the weird thing is, I'm kind of liking where everything I'm doing at this point is going. So I think I'm just going to follow it and do my own thing and not try to copy Mike Mignola. Which I was never going to actually copy Mike Mignola. I just wanted to bring some of his simplicity into what I'm doing. Because it might not seem like it, but making things simpler is probably harder than making things more complicated. And they still work as a drawing. So we'll just let things evolve the way they're naturally going and hope for the best. But so far, I dig everything that I'm doing. And I think the drawings are slowly becoming better than what they were before I started. And if you've watched any of the other videos, let me know. Am I crazy? Am I delusional? Am I actually getting better at this? I don't know, because I'm just doing it and letting things flow. But I definitely think the coloring is better. Oh, here we go. See, like I told you, I didn't like the leg. I wanted, it was too, he felt too compact. So I lengthened him up a little, which also meant I had to shrink him a little. So yeah, I just finished inking him, and what do? I redraw a whole leg. But we do what we gotta do to get the drawing we want. If I stuck with the original leg, would it have been good? Sure, would have been fine. I doubt anybody would have complained unless like you're a hardcore artist who just doesn't like that pose. But for the most part, it would have been fine. But my whole point in doing this is to get better at things and to improve my skills, and hopefully anybody who cares improve their skills too. I didn't want to re-ink the foot because I'm lazy, and it came out just fine. So I just added the old foot because it was in the right angle. But it's not just about me, it's about whoever is watching this also. So I hope this benefits both of us, saying that, if you're not happy with it, no matter how late in the game it is, change it. I've gotten all the way to the end of coloring something, and I'm like, oh, we're changing that. Like, I might add an amendment onto the Supergirl video for next week that changes a couple things. So, we'll see. But this one, I definitely just didn't like it enough that I had to change it. So, we went with it. And I think the drawing itself is better for it. Let me know what you think. Is this leg better than the old leg? Should I have just left it alone? Was it an unnecessary change? I don't know. So, let me know what you think. But yeah, here it is. I mean, that's the new leg. And we're pretty much done with the inks now. And we're going to move on to the colors. There's the finished ink without the background and the pencils. And there's where we're going to end up. So, time to color Deadpool. Good thing about Deadpool is he's only really 3 colors. He's red, he's either a gray or a blue, and a brown. And then you just gotta add highlights and stuff. But of course, I drew a bunch of pouches and unnecessary things on him, so, gotta go with the whole Rob Liefeld of the thing, and pouches and unnecessary stuff is definitely part of his gig. So we added them. I mean, I could have went crazy and added more. I could have put them on his arms, on his chest, and his feet, on his other leg. But, I'm not going to lean too much into the 90s, even though that was my prime time at comic reading. The first appearance of Deadpool, New Mutants 98. I've had a few copies of that in my life. But my first copy I bought when it came out. My memory's getting a little hazy on certain things, so I don't know if I bought it off the newsstand at, like, say, Marty's Corner, or if I bought it at the comic shop. I'm leaning towards the comic shop, because by that time, it was almost a year since the first appearance of Cable, which I know I bought off the newsstand. And I also know that I added New Mutants to my pull box at the local comic shop, which I have talked about before. So I'm leaning towards I got my first New Mutants 98 at the comic shop. And I don't know what happened to that copy. Because back when I was younger, late teens, I had some good books because I bought some Silver Age books off of the mailman, which I sold most of them to buy a car, but I still had some left. And, I talked about a little store in town that had comics that was kind of like a little junk store, and they were like $2 each. So I got like the first Black Panther there, some classic old Spider-Mans like the first John Romita story and things like that. Daredevil number 2 through 5 and 6, and I don't think I got a 7 there, but I got a 9 and a 15 too. And I had like the 1982 Wolverine Limited Series and Hulk 181 and Batman The Dark Knight Returns. Some of those books were hotter then than they are now, but they're still super cool. And I put those in a separate box. So, if anything happened to the main box, I put that box in the closet to hide it away from the world. So, nothing would happen to it. And it was at the house we moved to in the 90s. So it's not part of the whole toy fiasco of 1992, I believe it was. So they definitely survived that because it was after that. But that box vanished. I mean, it's gone. Some weird things disappeared in that house, and I don't know what happened to them. And I know nobody stole them because my mother, sometimes she gets a little crazy and she will throw things out, but she knows better than to throw out things like comic books and collectible things. That's just something she doesn't touch because she knows that they could potentially have value sometimes in the future. So yeah, that box just vanished. I had the first appearance of Sabretooth in it. First appearance of Batgirl was in it. Yeah, so that box vanished. I wish I knew what happened to it because I would love to find it, but at this point, I know I won't because we moved out of that house. My parents moved out of that house. We checked every nook and cranny and every closet. My son lives in that house now. He hasn't found it because he definitely would not throw away a box of comics, and he's not going to take my comics either because he's a good kid. And he wouldn't know what to do with them anyway if he did. So that box just vanished into thin air. Another thing that vanished from that house, weirdly, I went to New York City with a friend of mine, and we used to go to a place called Toy Tokyo. I wonder if that's still there. And I used to buy these little Star Trek ships. They were little blind boxes, like those little stuffed things that people are getting now. And you'd get a Star Trek ship. And I wanted all the Star Trek ships. And I was missing like 3 or 4 of them. So I bought some blind boxes. And I actually got like 1 or 2 of them. And then we went to St. Mark's Comics, which was awesome. It was a comic book store on St. Mark's Place in New York City. But unfortunately, the rent went up. They couldn't afford it anymore. And they shut down the store. And St. Mark's is not the cool little punk rock street that it used to be, unfortunately. Although maybe next time I go down to New York City, which will probably be a month or so because I want to hit a few museums, I'll head down to St. Mark's and see if it is because I'm kind of curious what's down there now. Because they closed the record store, they closed the vintage clothing store, they closed the comic shop. So yeah, I don't know what's there. And Googling it would be too easy. It's more fun to check it out yourself. But anyway, I bought those ships. And then at St. Mark's at the comic shop, they had some open blind bags. And they had the other 2 ships that I needed. So I bought those. I got home that night. It was late. I got home at like 2 in the morning or something. And I was tired. So I just dropped the book bag in the hallway. And I went to bed. I woke up the next day. And the book bag was gone. And I stole it at home because it was that long ago. And I said, Ma, where'd my book bag go? She's like, what are you talking about? There's no book bag. I said, yeah, I put my book bag right here. She's like, no, I didn't see it. So I asked my father when I got to work. I said, did you see a book bag here? He's like, no, I never saw a book bag. So I looked all over the house, and that was gone too. My book bag, it vanished. With all those cool new ships I bought in it and a couple of toys that I bought at Toy Tokyo. Because the cool thing about Toy Tokyo was they had Japanese import toys. So you get like cool Transformers things and cool Japanese anime things that you just couldn't get anywhere else at the time. And it was the mid-2000s, early 2000s, so, that stuff wasn't as popular as it is now, so finding that kind of stuff was extremely hard. You just couldn't walk into a comic shop or a place that sells Funko Pops and find cool, weird old Japanese toys. Just didn't happen back then. You had to go out of your way to find that stuff. And yeah, that vanished too. I also lost a pair of shoes in that house. They totally vanished. So yeah, the house was like a black hole to the borrowers, as my sister said. The borrowers took it. You ever seen that movie about those little people who borrow things from the house that they're inhabiting with that the people don't know they're there? But when anything disappears, you blame it on the borrowers. The borrowers took it. So that house definitely had some borrowers. And they like to take my stuff. Although don't get me wrong, I don't really believe in anything supernatural. It's not my thing. I'm not into ghosts. I'm not into goblins. I went looking for ghosts when I was younger with friends, and we never found any. We never found anything supernatural. And sometimes it bothers me when I see people using supernatural things to take advantage of people. But we won't talk about that because I could go into a lot of detail on that. Yeah, we'll just stop. But the colors, those are coming along nicely. It's just mostly simple shading, and then I throw a highlight on, and then I select the red layer again, and I throw a little orange in certain places as a gradient just to give it a little more depth. I mean, I'm not going for that painted look, but I definitely want it to be less flat. And that's part of what the highlights and the slight gradient on the solid red does. And I like the way it pulls everything together. It's a good look. I just realized I'm almost done with the video here, and I barely talked about Deadpool. I talked about Death's Head and She-Hulk and random toys from New York City and whatnot that have nothing to do with Deadpool. So let me know if you like these rambling videos, because it seems like that's what this one's going to be. But we're going to get back to Deadpool. There's a couple non-Deadpool stories that I really like, but they're sort of about Deadpool. There's one, it's an annual, it's a DC annual. I'd have to look it up. I'm not sure the number, so I apologize. But if you just type Deadpool DC annual, you'll find it. And a character who looks a lot like Deadpool shows up in the story. And he's sort of considered a variant of Deathstroke the Terminator, because Deadpool initially started out as kind of a ripoff of Deathstroke the Terminator. You know, Slade Wilson is Deathstroke, Wade Wilson is Deadpool. If you didn't know that, there's my little interesting fact of the day. And he just does Deadpool things, but they never call him Deadpool. And there's parts where they're close, and they do plays on the name, but they always stop short or something happens right before the character could finish their thought and give the character's name. And then he ends up going back to his own dimension, and that's the end of it. And another one, it's kind of a Deathstroke story. I think I actually mentioned it in the Deathstroke chibi video with Taskmaster, where Deathstroke, you know, since he's sort of Deadpool, he's on a boat in the middle of the ocean, and his job is to kill Bruce Wayne. But the problem is, he mistakes Clark Kent as Bruce Wayne, and somehow Clark Kent got drunk, which is weird because Kryptonians can't really get drunk in Earth's atmosphere, so I don't know exactly what happened there, but something happened where he was drunk. I think he was poisoned or something, and it was strong enough to affect him a little bit and make him drunk. And Deathstroke shows up and he cuts into him like he's trying to take care of Bruce Wayne, a regular person, and it just rips his shirt, and he's wearing Bruce Wayne's clothes for some reason, because I think he spilled something on his, and he goes, "You ripped Bruce Wayne's shirt." And then he just and Deathstroke's like, what's happening here? Why is this guy okay? And he breaks his sword, and he's like, I don't understand what's happening here. What's going on? And then he's like, "You bad." And he flicks him, because he's drunk. He's talking like, you know, a drunk guy, Superman. And he flicks Deathstroke, and Deathstroke just goes flying into the ocean. He's like, "I don't know what's happening. It's really crazy." And then it was weird, and it's a fun story. And I saw a thing, I read it somewhere, I don't know, I didn't think of it, but somebody said they should make a movie of Superman where the CIA or somebody's trying to kill Clark Kent because he knows so much or he's too close to a story. It has nothing to do with Superman, but no matter what they do, bombs, poison, knives, guns, mercenaries, nothing works. He just kind of walks out of it unscathed, and they can't figure out why it's so hard to kill Clark Kent, because he never once appears as Superman in this. It's just be almost like a situational comedy, like almost like a what's the guy's name? Jim Carrey movie, but with Clark Kent trying to be assassinated. I think that would be genius and hilarious. So for the background of this, I just went with a cool paintbrush texture because buildings want to look cool, and I didn't think speed lines would work, so I'm like, what would look cool? A huge paint stroke. It's similar to the one on last week's video, Tanjiro, but also different. But then I'm like, black? No. And I didn't think color would work. So I threw some fancy dots on it. My favorite thing to do. In a gradient. And once I found the color that I liked, I threw those photo filters on, which you will see here. It's just kind of a quick thing, unfortunately. And I thought it looked pretty great. And I'm not going to do the same thing over and over again with the same textures, but I am going to do similar things because the way it ended up looking was pretty sweet. Also, what was your favorite Deadpool movie? I think I like the second one with X-Force and Cable and Josh Brolin and all that stuff. I thought that was because it didn't so much focus on Wade, and I also like Domino in that movie. And the whole Brad Pitt thing for 3 seconds, and the normal dude who just showed up because it's a paycheck. You know, I like that. I didn't really love Wolverine and Deadpool. I thought I would, but I didn't. So yeah, I like the second one. Which one do you guys like? Also, here we go. I'm doing those filter things. You just saw the blur. Now I'm adding those photo filters and the chromatic apparition filter. See how you see it in the eyes? But it's kind of extreme until you bring back the opacity a little. And then it all comes together. I actually did this more than once, I think. Just because, you know, I wanted to make sure I had levels right and things like that. And my iPad really hated it. It kept making me wait. And that's never a good sign. It means probably I don't have enough RAM to run what I'm running. The iPad's older. It's right before the M1 chip came out. So it might be time to figure out how to get a new one, because I've done this on the Tanjiro drawing and a couple others since, and I get this little white box that tells me I'm pushing the iPad too hard, and like if I do a big thick stroke with the dots on it, it tells me that. It just doesn't tell me anything. It just makes me wait like a good 30 seconds to a minute before it lets me do my thing. And here I am, I'm adding the dots on the Deadpool, because I think that brings another level to him. And yeah, here we go. This video is almost done. I just, for some reason, decided that I didn't like the white emblem. Go figure. So, thanks for stopping by, drawing Deadpool with me. Sorry I rambled so much. Next week we'll have Supergirl, so thanks for coming along for the draw. Do the like and subscribe thing, and see you next week.